Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the world's best investing podcast. Today, I have with me Thomas, who is, in my opinion, one of the most knowledgeable members of the community, specifically regarding tech, all things chips, AMD. So, Thomas, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Sure thing. So, I guess today's main topic, and everything's going to sort of trickle down from that, is AMD going to take the whole inference market or not? To what degree is maybe that statement true? So, Thomas, I think, as I said, you're super knowledgeable on this. So, fire the shots. Give us what you got.
Yeah, so a quick introduction on the let's just talk about the whole AI trade right now. So after ChatGPT launched, it became apparent to me that AI was going to be a massive market. So basically, after 2 to 3 months after ChatGPT being released, I immediately wanted to enter the stock market, and I quickly found out there's 5 layers in the stack. So this is something widely discussed. Everybody knows now, but back when ChatGPT just came out, it was not clear at all. So the 5 layers of the stack are energy or infrastructure, data centers, data center build out without the chips, and then you have the chip layer. After the chip layer, you would have the foundational model layer, which would be your OpenAI, your Anthropic, your XAI, Gemini, Google DeepMind. After the model layer, I would say that the application layer is the most important one. So that would be your Palantir, Databricks, Snowflake, those kind of companies. This was the first wave for which I catched in the stock market. And then, of course, you have the people using the Palantir. For example, Copilot is being extremely quickly adopted right now from Microsoft in basically every enterprise in the whole world. So the end user, so for example, a lawyer, which is quicker, a notary firm, which can automate processes, that also has some kind of dynamic, which we've not been seeing in the stock market right now. And I would say there's the bonus layer, which is robotics or real world AI, which can also involve like FSD or those kind of things. So the first sense that I had was Nvidia was pumping. I didn't catch the Nvidia trade. So I immediately disregarded the infrastructure build-out layer, the chip layer, and I just was thinking about how can I benefit the most from this. It wasn't apparently clear which kind of companies were going to be the most beneficiary companies in the space, in the end layer. So I would have to say model layer, so LLM layer or application layer. And back then I had a thesis that the AI models were going to commoditize. So ChatGPT would look a lot like Anthropic. Anthropic would look a lot like Gemini. I was kind of wrong on that thesis. It is commoditizing, but not entirely. That has loads of nuances. But I did catch a very nice trade in the application layer, in the application layer. Sorry, with Palantir. After that, when I dove deep into the AI trade more and more, it became apparent to me that the infrastructure layer was totally not played out at all. It was in the very early stages, and that Nvidia was the winner was not the case at all. And it was just they had the 5 trillion market, 3 trillion at the time, but they had the 3 trillion market cap, but it was not totally clear that they were the winner. So that's why I'm here now. So if you want to double click on some issues, let me know.
Right. So I think a lot to potentially double click on. I think just so that the audience understands where you're at in terms of the infrastructure play, what is your AMD thesis, maybe summarized in 1 or 2 phrases? And maybe let's unpack that a little bit. I think that's going to be really interesting.
My whole thesis is basically the modularity of the chiplet infrastructure will give AMD at least half the market, right? That's something on
Will that be half the training market, half the inference market?
the inference market, yes.
Inference market. Okay, interesting. So I guess I've talked about this many times. I think a lot of the audience knows, but the idea is that if you have higher modularity than alternatives, you can effectively optimize chips at the circuit level. And so what that looks like is if at the edge you have to perform some kind of inference, which means to run a neural network, if you have something that can take on the actual physical shape of the network, you optimize the way in which the electrons move along the circuit. And therefore, in physical first principles basis kind of terms, you can't really compete with that if you're not optimizing at the circuit level too. So I guess the predominant narrative has been AI is just training in large data center clusters. And now I think as we see, self-driving AI and robotics, humanoids, and everything really begin to rear its head, I think that the AI at the edge thesis is more plausible. So Amir, who's also a member of the community, yesterday sent a note explaining how perhaps Nvidia I think it's Bluefield, not Blue Shield, Bluefield 4 does kind of abstract that competitive advantage away a little bit. It's a DPU, and what it does is manage the memory at the network level. So just to get everyone up to speed, the idea of optimizing at the circuit level is one thing. Then it's the idea of, because these LLMs are getting larger and the AI models are getting larger, do you have them on chip? Do you have the whole thing on the chip close to the computation so that then latency is minimized over time? NVIDIA Bluefield 4 does do that, but it does it at the networking level. So it's kind of like a software fix that brings actual memory closer to the compute engine via networking, but it doesn't do that like AMD's GPUs. So do you want to maybe go a little bit deeper on that? I know you have a lot of insights on this. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I would say you can divide the market into three categories. So you would have the GPU, which would be Nvidia, AMD, and those are the big ones. You would have the TPU market, which is mainly Broadcom or Google TPU, which is also, the same. And you would also have the new players like Grok or Cerebras, which are using a lot of SRAM, which is not HBM. So it's a different kind of architecture, which makes it a lot quicker, but it has some issues with scaling to more RAM or larger models. So first of all, the reason I'm mostly bullish on GPUs compared to the rest is because of the flexibility. So I do see loads of applications for example, for Cerebras or Grok. I think for talking to AI models for customer service or all those kinds of applications, the latency, quickness, and the agileness of the model is very, very important. So I do see a real use case there for the Grok or Cerebras layers. But for the Google TPU layer, it appears now that Gemini is having the lead in real world models, or Claude 4.5 Opus is having the lead in coding models. And those are basically on Trainium and Google TPU. But there's a huge caveat to this. The other labs, XAI or OpenAI, are training their models mainly on Nvidia GPUs. And the newest architecture Nvidia GPUs are not yet online. So basically, Q1 we're gonna see how good and big the models of the latest GPU architecture were, and I think we're gonna see some big surprises where Anthropic or Google are not leading anymore. And also a big issue with the TPU is that it's not very you cannot switch the workload. So once you configure the chip, let's say the workload switches from transformer models to diffusion models, or there's another architecture shift in the transformer models for maybe the guys from DeepSeek, open source something, whatever. It's very hard to reconfigure the TPUs. So the GPUs give you more flexibility. And then inside the GPU layer, you have Nvidia and AMD, and guess who's the most flexible over there, right? So that's AMD. And yeah.
So Thomas, I think sort of to distill this, crystallize it for the audience. I think what you're saying is, actually, in the AI value chain, there's a form of an innovation stack taking place across companies. Meaning, if you, for example, have the leading frontier model that happens to be optimizing the software for a given specific piece of hardware, which has various providers vertically going into the thing, so you basically have this vertical supply chain, and whichever has most information flowing through it and at a higher velocity is ultimately the one with a marginal advantage, which in the digital space, we know that translates into an exponential one. That is really why investors have such a tough time figuring out moats. So your answer is, you basically see one predominant sort of vertical value chain which is winning right now, and your thesis would be that AMD accelerates the information flow in that vertical value chain because of the flexibility. Exactly
Exactly.
right.
Exactly. right? So yeah, there's some part of the thesis that's backfiring right now. So for example, the flexibility of AMD gave it a lot more HBM in the chips, and unfortunately, there's a HBM shortage right now. So that's the costs are like running, but
So
the
HBM
HBM,
stands for, is that high bandwidth memory, correct?
yes,
Yeah, just so
yeah,
everyone knows. Yeah.
yeah, which is being used at the for the context window, etc. But for example,
Where does AMD get their memory from? I think that's something that's going to be
well,
very interesting.
it's quite a commodity. So there
Right.
are like 3 or 4 providers, and it's quite the same product, but there's just a shortage.
Okay.
So yeah,
Well, you
it's
said,
Micron, yeah,
yeah. So Micron and who else?
yeah, SK Hynix or Samsung or some smaller companies, but those stocks are pumping right now because of the shortage.
Right. Interesting. So one of the things you've been talking about in the community over the past few weeks is you think there's going to be a massive CPU shortage as well. Do you want
Yeah,
to maybe
exactly.
explain your thesis there and why that's relevant to
That's
AMD?
basically the reason they are pumping right now, AMD, right?
Right.
Yeah, so maybe Intel can get a lot of money from this too, but basically the agent architecture that's being used right now, a lot of workload is on the CPU. So that's another reason why AMD is very nice, interesting play, because they can network the CPUs, the GPUs. It's very, yeah, it's in architecture. Flexibility is amazing. Because, for example, web searches or tool calls or AI models have skills now. All these things are being run over the CPU architecture. So the GPU and the CPU are very aligned with each other and should be as close as possible for the connection to be made there. And I just saw the workload increasing so much at the agent level, and I was like, all right, so I'm thinking there's gonna be a CPU shortage because the TSMC and the Intel fabs are not infinitely scaling. But the only question right now is, so who's benefiting the most from the shortage? Is it gonna be TSMC or Intel, or is it gonna be AMD? So that depends on the pricing power that AMD can leverage in the shortage right now.
Hmm. I guess it's likely to lift all boats. I think this is a very fast rising tide. And I think that, I mean, I think this applies to the whole broader AI thesis, which we can discuss now. And I think it's quite relevant for AMD, but it's so counterintuitive to human sort of typical linear thinking. And it just keeps outperforming everyone's most bullish takes. Like, for example, yesterday I saw a post by Elon Musk. I think that he was answering a question which someone asked him. And the question was, what do you think the biggest company is going to be worth in like 10 years' time? And he said, in excess of 100 trillion. And for the past 5 years, I've been talking about $20 trillion companies, $10 trillion companies, and everyone was sort of in shock and horror, right? Like, oh, $20 trillion, that's so much. I think value creation processes are accelerating so much, and like anything that goes into the infrastructure play is just getting sucked out, including energy, memory, CPUs, GPUs. Um, and it's likely to be. I mean, I think people keep talking about 2 3 year bull markets. I don't think anyone really knows. And so long as this thing, as the AI scaling laws persist, it could be like a 10, 20, 50 year, 100 year secular thing. And it might end in sort of mind-boggling, insane numbers. Like, you have to go and colonize like a faraway galaxy to harvest the energy or something. It could end in something like that, you know?
Yeah.
So how do you see the broad AI thesis? Do you think there's any risk of us being in a bubble now? How do you navigate that as an investor yourself?
Well, I would say the main reason people think we're in a bubble is you have to really think about who are the most people, right? Who are screaming the bubble the most? It's folks like Burry or maybe the broader general people. And how are they using AI? So most likely they have a ChatGPT or Copilot account. They ask it a bunch of questions. GPT-5 was kind of disappointing compared to 4.0 because it didn't have the cute emojis or whatever. So people were like disappointed with GPT-5, and they are not running any real workloads on AI, right? So if I was one of those persons, yeah, I would agree we're in a bubble. However, though, everybody that's doing real labor, no, sorry, not real labor, real white collar labor, um, anyone who's been using the newest Claude models or Gemini models, or any creatives using the Nano Banana from Google, they see that the scaling laws are not stopping, and that the workloads that the AIs are doing are much more autonomous, much more better, more accurate. It's one-shotting a bunch of questions right now. And I have to say, like, I'm debating it on some stock theses. It's so extremely smart. It has all the relevant newest information. It's just super, super crazy. And I am literally, I have subscriptions with Cursor, Anthropic, Gemini, OpenAI, XAI. I use everything. I compare it all every day. I'm a power user, and I just see it. Yeah, I'm just a bit disappointed with GPT-5, but that's it.
Right. So I think you in your own work life, I think you mentioned a few weeks ago, you had a bunch of agents running in the background doing things at your company, right? And sort
Yeah,
of
so I
developing things.
won't talk too much about my company, but some boys for me are software engineers, and they are using Cloud Code. Like, they get at the office at like 9, they leave at 9, and it's 12 hours of running Cloud Code. Like,
Yeah.
that's what they're doing. And now it's going even so far, they are running multiple terminals at the same time. So they are using like 5 or 6 agents continuously throughout the whole day.
Right. That's
And
fascinating.
it's making them maybe 100 times more efficient. It's insane.
So would you say the productivity has increased by a factor of what? Maybe in a given
100,
time span?
100x.
100x?
Yeah, probably more, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, but software engineering is it's different than the rest, right? Because you can endlessly create stuff. Let's say you're a lawyer and using AI, you cannot make 100 more cases or something like that. So AI will mainly drive benefits to those who create. So
Yeah.
clear distinction to be made there.
Yeah, I think the universe can be so sarcastic sometimes because it's enough for like a random guy to jump on like say X and start saying 100x all over the place and it going viral and everyone thinking it's idiotic. For then actually the value creation process is to accelerate like that. Like life is so ironic like that. So, where do you think the AMD thesis is headed in the next 5, even 10 years? If you're looking so far out, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, it's a very the future is not determined yet. It's very blurry for me. I have no idea. I'm almost full portfolio in AMD right now. I have a bit in Tesla. And I think the main reason I'm bullish is just because of the flexibility they have. So the OpenAI deal, which some of the viewers might not know, OpenAI agreed to acquire 100 billion worth of chips in AMD, and they would have to get like 10% of the company, which is a very good deal for them. But I think there's much more behind the deal. So OpenAI probably recognizes the CPU shortage thing. So having 10% in a CPU, the best CPU provider is huge. Then also the GPU story is not going away. It's not going to be TPUs. It's not going to be quantum. It's not going to be the Grok and Cerebus. I see real use cases for all those chips, but GPU is going to remain dominant, in my opinion. And the flexibility they offer in real world AI will probably be amazing, right? Because OpenAI has reportedly been partnering with Johnny Ive from Apple,
Hmm.
and they are making real world devices. And I'm guessing it's going to be running on AMD, right? Maybe they're making a pen or a new phone or something like that. But I'm betting it's going to sell billions of products, which would also be very bullish for AMD if OpenAI were to be seriously considering them as the main provider of AI chips. I'm hoping though OpenAI can increase their stuff with codex models, because what I'm seeing at Anthropic right now, it's insane for the Claude code. And let's say Codex becomes the main workforce for software engineers, right? I think OpenAI could add like 5, 6, or 7 billion ARR next year just because of coding, if they were to become the dominant coding provider. Because I'm thinking Anthropic is doing like $12 billion in revenue, or like 11. I'm not sure entirely, but I'm guessing like 60 or 70% of that's coding. So the market is really huge, and it's just begun. And Dario Amodei basically he said yesterday or 2 days ago that every job, every task that a software engineer does will be automated in 12 months. So if you have that thesis in your head, everything a software engineer does will be automated away in 12 months. That gives the power of everybody in the world can become a software engineer, one of the best software engineers ever. So the implications of this are huge, right? So this is huge for banking. This is huge for social media. This is huge for B2B SaaS. This is huge for Like the whole digital world will transform. And I think we can't even imagine how the world will look like in 12 years. So I'm extremely unsure of who will be the beneficiaries of AI. And when I go back to that, who's gonna win AI? I don't know. Who's gonna benefit the most from AI? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And then it's very, very clear that you need to be in chips because everybody is buying chips, right? So that's the reason I'm so big on AMD right now.
It's funny. That's kind of, I have a friend who's an investor as well. And he said a few years ago, like, the one thing you can do this decade is probably go long semiconductors almost blind. Because at any point in time, any extraordinarily well run chip company is going to do fairly well. And I think over the past year and stuff, you've seen a bunch of them sort of the stocks running hot and the fundamentals doing well just because there's a shortage of everything. And I guess that I think you can summarize the bull thesis as you're not going to have any friends left in 5 years' time because it's also like it's so uneven. And like there's this conversation about software working or not and actual companies deriving value. And I think as a Palantir shareholder for quite some time now, it's pretty obvious that it's uneven. So like a lot of software is useless, and then Palantir is particularly useful. And customers even describe it as magic. And then coincidentally, what you have is free cash flow per share rising very fast. So I'm just going to share the screen now so that folks can see that. I don't think, I mean, it's as things get weirder, I think it's very interesting to have this mantra, which is stock prices track free cash flow per share over the long term. And it's really the only thing I think intellectually you can hold on to because, as you were saying, like the future is so uncertain and it's so dynamic and things are moving so fast. The only thing you can really do as an investor is think, is this business that I'm looking at going to exponentiate free cash flow per share or not, regardless of whether you are pursuing a specific theme or what. And I think it's pretty extraordinary how actually if you if you start to look at the growth rate of this company, what's interesting is that it's growing faster as it gets bigger. And if I just plot the gross profit margins are going up as well as it gets bigger,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. I mean, if you look at this
I
graph, like, yeah,
I have a very interesting question for you.
go ahead.
Um, because one of the real modes that companies right now have is data, right?
Yeah.
So the reason you can't replicate the Palantir is probably because you're not gonna have the data to do the real world applications. The reason you cannot make a Duolingo is because you don't know what really works on people for learning, etc., etc.
Hmm.
And you also have the cold start problem, right? You cannot just acquire users, acquire distribution. You need some network effects, etc. But when you can replicate data or maybe fake data with AI models behaving as humans, how do you look at this, right? Because it's so unclear to me what the mode is between real data or synthetic data or how you look at this. And I know it's differs per product. For example, Palantir maybe cannot be replicated, but for example, maybe now I'm not trying to shit on Duolingo, but maybe the data can be synthesized, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm wondering how you think about this.
So I think data synthesis, as any other application of neural nets, it's you can do it better as you have more and better data. So ultimately, if data synthesis does come into play, whoever has a stronger proprietary data set is likely to win. It's like it's a form of automation essentially. It's sort of just one verticalized application of automation. And so if you have the leading platform in terms of absolute user hours, spent engaging with the platform and you have more and better data, you can synthesize more and better data. And that's sort of an additional flywheel. I think there's going to be sort of infinite additional flywheels that we see because I do think obviously more automation generates more data as well. And so that's why I'm so bullish on singularity scalars as a concept, broader concept for the next decade, and then on specific ones like Palantir and Duolingo. Because although, as you're saying, the components of the infrastructure platform are highly uncertain, and it's true for any stage of the value chain. But when you have a platform in which you have a flywheel, and essentially as you go forward in time, the flywheel accelerates, and the disruptability of the platform is an inverse function of the speed and magnitude of the flywheel, the thesis is clear. So I think if you look at Palantirs, as they grow, That's because they productize more, and as they productize more, they have more users, more data, and they have it across more verticals of the economy. So, defense, healthcare, finance, whatever, and then functions within each of these verticals. And so I think as they do that, it just gets harder to disrupt. And I would say, I mean, synthetic data can be anything because if you think about it physically, it's maybe you're going to be able to sort of double you're going to, it's maybe like a copy of your existing data set with maybe some noise. Maybe additional noise makes the neural net better at identifying reality, but I don't know statistically how that works. Um, I don't think AI's ability to think is going to be decoupled from data anytime soon. That would be perhaps the thing that breaks the singularity scalar thesis. As in, all of a sudden you have an AI that's just capable of figuring out whatever Palantir can figure out with a lot of data and current neural networks. When you have that, I think that that thesis does break. But otherwise, it's just a massive acceleration, just beyond belief. I was looking at a company. I'm doing a deep dive now, actually, called Xometry, Xometry, that was recommended by Harrison, another member of the community I did a pod with this past week, and it presents a very similar scenario. They did a very smart bunch of M&A transactions in 2020, 2021, and the thing has accelerated massively. And you see the same pattern as Palantir. It's just growing faster, and as they grow faster, margins are up, free cash flow per share is up, cash from operations. And so I think this is a thesis that's actually very broad. Like, it had never occurred to me that you could apply a sort of marketplace concept to utilizing spare manufacturing capacity and sort of connecting that with people that want to manufacture stuff. That's what this company does. It's pretty insane to me, and it's working beautifully. And the thing that seems to be driving the cash flow generation is their ability to price stuff and therefore to connect supply and demand. So it's like, if I look at these theses, I think that when I was saying 100x investments and stuff, I think that could be an understatement, which is it's very confusing, and also I think quite destabilizing. I think it's going to be very destabilizing to society because this is not going to be evenly spread out at all.
Well, yeah, I would have to argue against that. Basically, I think it will be very stabilizing because if you look at the most value creation of the last 20 years, how did the normal guy benefit from Meta becoming $3 trillion? Or how did the average guy gain value from Google gaining 3 trillion? But now I think the average guy, because of the knowledge is being commoditized, I think everybody's going to benefit from AI. So basically, if there's a 100 trillion company, that's not going to be because of short-term reels which fry your brain. It's probably because it's, I don't know, healthcare for everybody, or yeah, legal help for everybody, or I don't know, maybe everybody can create their own house on demand, or I don't know, something like this. It's probably going to be something more like that, other than what we had in the last 20 years, which I'm not very happy about.
Well, you mean you're not happy about it being evenly distributed?
No, I'm not happy. No, I'm very
Oh, about
about the
what's
last
happened in the
20
past.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I like that view. I think also it could be that the way um, AI actually delivers value to people is social media, which is very funny. Because if you look at people sort of frying their brains on reels and stuff, it's also giving many people a lot of jobs and very cool ones because it's sort of very remote, decentralized. You have people sharing all kinds of content. So I think maybe that could be the way that value does arrive to society. I guess I was maybe kind of bearish on that because my immediate environment is sort of very unplugged from this. Um, so like if you live in Spain, anywhere in Southern Europe, I think people are sort of very oblivious to this dynamic, and it's kind of disheartening because you do see people not doing very well.
Yeah, I guess maybe white collar workers, they maybe it's not going to be looking great for them coming years. But I would say as society as a whole, it's like having a doctor on demand for $20 a
That's
month.
good.
I mean, like it's not going to get any better than that, right?
I think you already have it for free. I think
Yeah,
if you do like blood samples every once in a while and you just throw it into ChatGPT or Grok or whatever, it's pretty damn good.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
very,
right.
very good. Now,
I mean, like, yeah, but the reason is okay. So an issue I'm having with AI is like, how are you gonna make real money from this? Because if the value of everything drops to zero, all the services, all the things, of course, going to the restaurant or buying a car, it's not gonna be like that for the coming 10 years. But for all the other services people provide to each other, how are you gonna make money? I'm wondering. Yeah, that's kind of the bearish take. But on the other hand, like everything's gonna be very cheap, very good, very better than humans. Like,
I think if you look at the current economy and what it actually does, I think it's providing humans with sort of basic needs: food, shelter, clothes, the ability to socialize as a result, and kind of have relationships and everything, and then some marginal healthcare, some marginal ability to travel, because it sucks. It takes a long time and everything, and it's expensive and boring and slow and everything, and that's primarily a function of our ability to process information. So I think all of that gets automated, compressed into compressed into an API, and then the rest of the economy gets built on top of that. So conversely, if you look at what humans don't have today, we don't have a lot of self-actualization. We have a lot more than 200 years ago, but you fundamentally spend most of your time on Earth doing very repetitive tasks, actually. And even whatever time you spend on your phone, you're doing the same thing over and over again. And it's like 90% of your activity is repetitive before you actually access value. Like unlocking your iPhone, like clicking on your computer, dragging files, stuff like that. So I think actually the future of the economy is about self-actualization. Like, human existence is it's a pretty hardcore thing. It's a very strange thing, and we have to kind of figure it out. We haven't quite. And for example, the population is aging, and they don't. I mean, like you could probably repurpose every like 90% of workers today just to make human existence a lot nicer, because that's the thing machines can't do for now, which is empathy, socializing, stuff like that. So I think we're going to have a massive economy around that. And there's going to
yeah,
be a lot of, probably space travel and stuff, Star Trek kind of.
yeah, yeah, basically.
Yeah. But I do think that we're actually on a path, as Elon Musk was saying, to money not actually mattering that much. I don't know exactly when it happened.
Yeah, but I could also see it very much being, we're from Europe, that let's say the singularity is here, could also very well be that nothing changes for us.
I mean, look, when I look at people in Spain, I don't think the majority of them are going to care about AI taking their job. People in Spain are absolutely prepared to not do anything. And,
Yeah.
just like socialize and drink wine and look at art and whatever. And I think there's going to be a lot of that
Well,
in.
let's say AI does the job for us, right? What's wrong with that?
Oh no, nothing. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Like, I think
yeah,
if you look at humans like 200, 300 years ago, you're like, wow, their lives really sucked. And that's what I think our kids are going to look at our early lives like, wow, this guy was like literally, in school for like 150 years, preparing to then quote unquote make money, and then all of a sudden money doesn't matter. It's like you had a really bad life. You know,
yeah,
not that it was right. We've enjoyed it thus far, I
yeah,
get, but I think that's how people are going to be looking at life in 8 years' time.
yeah, yeah. It's gonna be strange. I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's gonna be very, very strange.
And like you know how when I said like Palantir has 100x potential, I really do think. I think if you say you had like $2 million in Palantir at $100 per share, I think you're going to make tens, hundreds of millions of dollars in the next 10 years, and you're going to be like, you're going to have an existential crisis. You're going to go on a yacht, and like it's going to be really boring, and you're going to have to reconfigure. I think the way you exist. It's very extreme, right? But it's how I'm thinking about it. I know it's pretty
Yeah,
insane.
yeah. It's pretty insane. Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking about this at AMD as well, right? I think maybe, look, maybe the transformer architecture will be outdated in a couple of years. Maybe the optimizations from the AI labs will be so big that running, yeah, that you don't need all these chips. That might be true, but how I'm seeing it right now, it's just getting bigger and bigger and better and better. And like, yeah, you want to be on the chip side, right?
That's where I think actually I quite like the AMD thesis, in that it's rooted in very low level physics. In that whatever happens with AI, as much as it wants to accelerate, you just know you have to optimize at the circuit level. And the ability to do that comes from chiplets and whatever form of chiplet we have in 10 years' time. Say they advance so much it gets to some sort of seamless connectivity integration. It always just comes down to, can you move electrons faster? Can you go around Moore's law? And then can you combine compute engines at will? because one compute engine that I think is really going to take over now is FPGAs, and that's part of the whole abundance thesis with AI is you're going to have intelligence everywhere. And I think also people right now are sort of defaulting to looking at compute as clustered in data centers, and then sort of it being binary. It's either clustered in very high density, very large data centers where it's right at the edge. But actually, I think compute is going to be distributed. Because say you want to perform inferences in a region, you might benefit from having a smaller data center inside the region. So I think if you study actually what Oracle and AMD are doing, is they're actually building out AMD's tech to build a completely distributed compute infrastructure. And it's not just for inference, it's for training too, which is why I think we've seen AMD begin to win in training. It's, you're going to have to train stuff sometimes in proximity to the edge. And it's going to be highly granular. Like you're going to train stuff in very big data centers, medium ones, small ones, and then even at the edge as well. So for that, I think that's why I think AMD is going to go into a massive winning spree over the next 10 years, because you can't disrupt low level physics, circuit level optimization. So that's why I think this is going to be a massive, massive company. I also think it's going to potentially win more than Nvidia. Like this has been, I wrote my sort of re-deep dive on this company in 2022 now, and it's been 4 years before this thing has begun to rear its head. But it literally has another 10 years ahead, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe even more, right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, could be, could be.
For example, for self-learning LLMs, right? So that will be training on the fly, reconfiguring your own weights, your training data, etc. Like these kind of things have not even been widely distributed yet, and I would say it's probably very, very, very hard for them to distribute this across all their user base. But let's say you're distributing robots, Optimus robots, in your Elon Musk. Yeah, it would be very, very nice if you could localize the learning and training inside of the robot. Because, yeah, a robot in my house would have to learn other things than other robots.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you know how like I think the primary thing people are thinking about when it comes to AI at the edge is the humanoid thing as a platform. And I do agree with that. I think it's going to be huge. But what I think is going to be way bigger than anything anyone is thinking about right now is biology at the edge. So I was ranting this week about immunity bio and the IL-15 pathway and how that allegedly jacks up T and NK cell count and everything. And going back to the idea of self-actualization, if you look at human existence today, it's defined on the negative side of things by you not knowing what's going on in your body, how much time you have left, and all of that. But it's really just a giant Lego puzzle. And much like the IL-15 thing, I think is going to be revolutionary because rejuvenating the immune system is foundational for anything. It's literally, in my opinion, going to be for biology like what Nvidia has been to date to GPUs. But if you break down human biology and just any biology, it's just a whole combination of such pathways interacting with each other. It all comes down to shapes of molecules. So that's what I think is, I think if you talk to the average human in 10, 15 years' time, that's what they care about. Like they have humanoids that can build
Yeah.
cars from houses, whatever. Like what I want to do is live for a long time and be very
Yeah.
healthy, you know?
Would you say you had the HIMSS competitor guy on? I don't know his name again. Would you say he changed your thesis on HIMSS?
Who did?
Some guy who has a testing lab company.
Oh yeah, yeah. So Max Marchioni from
Yeah.
Superpower. Yeah, I mean, not really. No. I think so his angle, his company's angle is going straight into a longevity branding kind of thing, which I think is an interesting angle, and it's going to resonate a lot with people. Because I think HIMSS is a lot of people still see HIMSS as a boner pill company. Like when I was in New York a few months ago, actually quite some months ago now, I talked to some people about this, and they were like, "Oh, you mean the Viagra company?" So like there's an angle to that. But I think I think it's the Costco algorithm just applied to the various components of the healthcare value chain. And the ones that's actually fundamental is exhaustive biomarkers. So if you have something acute, you go to the doctor now, and they're obviously very good at that. If you have something acute going on, primary healthcare and emergencies and everything is very good. But if you have something chronic going on, which is true for 99.9% of humans today, even like babies, toddlers, and everything. Because I love the modern world, and it's way better than the old world. But we have a little bit of a toxicity problem in terms of heavy metals, chemicals, stuff like that. But we'll fix it. And
Plastics.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think if you have that full snapshot of what's going on in your body at the molecular level, near real time, the whole problem just disappears because, like, like, hey, you have aluminium in your colon, and no wonder it correlates with the pain and digestive issues, and oh, maybe you have mercury, maybe you have this pathogen. That's literally all that's happening in chronic healthcare issues. And so you got to be applying an industrial value creation blueprint behind that to make it completely abundant, highest quality possible, super cheap, super fast. And I think when you do that, the healthcare system radically changes. It goes from top down to bottoms up. You have an abundance of information on the internet. You have AI models that are getting exponentially smarter, and then you have a full, exhaustive information set on what's happening in your body at the molecular level. So when you do that, you win because you become top of funnel. And so if you combine that with then a machine that essentially sends out the necessary molecules to each person per the snapshot that you get at the molecular level, you end up with something that's just completely massive. But you need the industrial deflationary scale up component. And that's, I mean, if I were to start a company today in healthcare, I would just do biomarkers and I would try to do that as well as possible. What's also true is that if you're going to do biomarkers, you have to have synergies across verticals. Because maybe right now it's a lot easier to acquire someone as a customer via Viagra and hair loss and depression than it is about biomarkers. Like the average customer is not going to care much
Yeah.
about biomarkers. Maybe when they come on for the ED or whatever, you can say, hey, do you feel a little bit tired? And you don't know why. Okay, do this. And then you sort of funnel them into the
Yeah.
biomarker thing. So I think you need the deflationary industrial component, and then you need to meet customers where they are at today. Like my sort of ideal evangelic healthcare customer is like, oh, peptides, frequencies, ozone, whatever, all of that. No one really cares about that. They just have symptoms they want
Yeah.
to fix. And that, I think that's the thesis. That's why I'm so bullish on HIMSS. And you got to be doing that in a very native way. So I think if you look at Amazon, I'm actually buying stuff from Amazon. Like I buy supplements here and there. But as a healthcare concierge, I think I'm going to always tend to prefer something that's specific. But the market is going to be so freaking massive. Like new generations, they don't even care about owning a car. They don't, I mean, they want to just be really healthy. And I think if you look at the influencers that have done best over the past 5 years, they're all about longevity, healthcare. Primarily, I think Brian Johnson and Andrew Huberman. These are the two sort of hottest guys right now, especially Brian Johnson. He's very, very hot. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the way you're explaining it to me right now, like I think you're such a contrarian guy, but so well thought out that when you explain it, it doesn't sound contrarian at all. But when you expose these ideas to the average
Yeah.
analyst or the average human, I think people are gonna, yeah, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. It's like a vomiting allergic reaction session, always.
Yeah,
Especially
but
if it's.
okay, so yeah, so my question to you is, and I'm also gonna answer the question myself. So I would ask you, what's your most contrarian take in everything? AI, robotics, healthcare, maybe other stocks, learning. The
Oh,
most contrarian take.
I have a bunch of them. I think some of them would even put me at risk. Uh,
Duolingo to a trillion or something.
I mean, yeah, that's obvious. Like, I think, yeah, people are very triggered by that. I think for us right now, it's a very normal thing to say, but I think it's a $1 trillion, $5 trillion company in the making.
Yeah.
I think TMC is going to be $1 trillion plus, eventually 5, 10, $20 trillion as this vision materializes. I have a lot in healthcare because, as you may know, I've been in quite a journey. And I haven't only been a contrarian in the stock market sense, but also in the biological healthcare space with everyone that I've met, basically. I think when you have a sort of chronic health thing, you go see, there's actually a bunch of doctors I really respect, specifically integrative healthcare doctors. But then you go see a bunch of experts and you meet people in your life and you're always sort of being contrarian to these people. And this is a space that it's very troublesome. It's not like innovation in tech is sort of very free and information flows around very freely. In healthcare, not quite so much. And so I have a whole bunch of things there that have gotten people into trouble in the past.
Okay, we'll hop on the call after the stream.
Yeah. So like, I don't think I'm going to talk much about that. To talk about that, I think you need like a massive balance sheet, right?
All right.
You need to
Yeah.
be worth like $500 billion and then you can talk about it.
I'll talk about my most contrarian take, but it's not
Okay.
gonna hurt anybody's brand or whatever. I think the most contrarian take I have is that everybody sees the value AI is gonna bring,
Yeah.
but it's gonna undershoot everybody what they say, but the value is gonna be so massive, even though it undershoots the singularity or ASI or whatever, it's gonna undershoot that. The value creation will be so massive that it will be like 10 times the dot-com era. So that's my most contrarian take. It will undershoot Elon Musk, what they are saying, but it will overshoot the value creation processes that they are expecting.
That's interesting. So you think it's gonna undershoot, but it's still gonna deliver enough, basically.
100 times more than enough. I think there's not going to be a godlike AI, but I think the value creation will be insane.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Even if there's like a godlike AI, I think humans are pretty likely to ignore it, which I think is also funny.
Yeah, probably the
Yeah, I
same.
mean, you've always had like godlike figures, uh, and you could say for their time they've had sort of equal impact on the limbic brain of humans, right? Like states right now have massive power, but I think a lot of people will still ignore it. Uh, yeah, like I mean,
Perfectly worded,
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, oh yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
screw this god. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Like
exactly.
like a sort of early version of that is the Whoop, and it tells you what time you have to get into bed. And sometimes you're
Yeah.
like, "I'll go fuck yourself," you know?
Yeah. But okay, so let's say it's gonna be godlike intelligence, right?
Yeah.
I've never heard you talk about like are we talking to like let's say okay, I don't want to be inside of politics or like religion, but let's say um, the Christianity, Islam, etc. weren't so big. I would think loads of people would be telling us right now we're talking to maybe a god or maybe demons or something like that. I like it's magic, right? What's happening with AI? I'm wondering, do you think it's magic or what do you think?
Yeah. So look,
Or
I'll tell you, I'm a Catholic. Okay, I've grown up as a Catholic. I find a lot of sort of that's kind of my spiritual, emotional home. Okay, but then, as you know, I'm a pretty sort of um, tangential thinker. Okay, so like about religion, I think there's a number of interpretations. You know this thing that came out. I think it was a week ago, saying someone told the Bank of England to prepare for an alien invasion and stuff.
yeah, yeah,
I thought, I mean, it's like the thing with algorithms is they can make you think stuff without you knowing that. So I think I've grown interested in the idea of aliens, and so I realized that just by looking at that content and reading it, it makes you feel like an imminent revelation is coming up, which is basically how how sex
yeah,
works, right? Like gatherings of insane people. That's how it works. It's like via re-exposure, sort of top-down authority, which is kind of what the algorithm does to you and everything. But having said that, there's very interesting parallels between stories in Catholicism and the things people report with aliens. And so
yeah.
this idea, I found it very interesting. I don't buy it, but
No, I'm not saying aliens, but I mean like AIs.
oh no,
So
no, yeah.
basically,
So
yeah,
where
okay,
I'm
yeah,
going with this is that I think
yeah, okay.
I think it's a plausible interpretation that much of the stories that have been told, and I'm not saying I buy it. Okay, I have a bunch of extremely Catholic friends, and they would die if they hear this. Okay, but I think there's a number of factors surrounding humanity and emerging from humanity that may have been intermittent over time. We may have had previous forms of it, etc., that were interpreted as magic by past humans. And so, to answer your question, would anyone just jumping out of the year 1200 now, would they interpret that as a god potentially? And I think it's really interesting. If you go back to like Egyptian times and everything, there's a lot of stuff which is plausible. The universe is huge, which people have interpreted as magic and then sort of spun into religions. But I think it's a very interesting time in that sense because a lot of the social unrest now comes from people losing track of religions because they may have been somewhat more irrelevant, especially over the past few years with tech innovation, and sort of being replaced with other religions which are fundamentally damaging. Even like the big ones today have been damaging in the past, but then they've been moderated. And so I wouldn't say Catholicism today is damaging, but I would say, for example, neo Marxism is pretty bad and it actually kills people, you know, with like the whole climate agenda and stuff. And so yeah, I think that space is going to get weird, and it could get weird very quickly.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Peter Thiel or maybe Elon Musk, but one of them said like good technology is like magic. I
Yeah,
think I think we're seeing something like that, right? The good
yeah,
technology, it's all mathematics, but then really like it's like AIs, they just predict the next token, right? But yeah, it's really really getting good right now. So
yeah.
yeah,
And then as
if
well, there's
yeah
there's like abandoned avenues of science in human history. So like
yeah
the one thing sort of that really kicked into me when I first walked into the pyramids once is this was clearly built with tech that we don't have today. And I read a book and it explains how just the precision of the angles and the length and stuff today you couldn't make it with the tech we have. And then in medicine, and if you read Tesla and stuff, and I've seen things in clinics which are insane and they work really well. And it's basically it's science and sort of avenues of knowledge that have been completely abandoned. And my theory is that humanity has been up and down with them. So at some point in time, I think we've been pretty good at things which have now been forgotten. That's my impression.
Okay, so would you say so? I don't know if you know the guy Ilya Sutskever from OpenAI, which now has his own firm. So basically, how he explains it to me. So let's say you have a book, right? And the book has 300 or 400 pages, and it's a mystery book, and the whole book is about the end of the book. It's preparing you for the end of the book, and it's leaving clues, and it's not leaving clues. It's putting you on the wrong track, maybe on the right track. You don't know, right? And the whole crux of the book, so the explanation of the book is in the last page, on the last sentence, on the last word. And let's say the writer leaves out the last word or maybe the last sentence. And the AI, through its token prediction mechanism, embeds all the tokens from the book and then can predict the next token, which will be the last sentence or the last word, because of the probability that it assigns to the words in its model weights. Let's say it gets the word or the sentence right. Would you say that the AI really understood the book, understood the clues, maybe got read between the lines of the author? Or would you say it's just a mathematical model? Well, I would say like maybe it just really understands the book on a level we don't understand yet.
I mean, it's obviously like a statistical engine that's powering it.
Yeah.
It's basically just I would say it's Pearson correlation on steroids. So that's essentially what it is. Uh, but I think there's bound to be multiple forms of intelligence. I think ours, my impression is it works in a kind of, I think it's like a quantum level, and it's doing something similar. I think something quite similar. But you have consciousness or the illusion of it. I don't think Pearson correlation on steroids gets the illusion of consciousness. That's how I see it. I think our brain is more of a receiver than an actual compute engine.
Yeah.
It's the feeling I get. Like I'll tell you, the things that have really made me succeed, like Palantir, AMD back in the day, Tesla back in the day, even I think Immunity Bio now, they don't feel there's like an intellectual build up to it, but there's a whole journey of intuition taking me down avenues of knowledge. Like as I think in 2018, 2019, I sort of felt a very strong urge to do online AI courses, which is why I like them so much. People hate them, but to me, they've been transformational. And so I went on Udacity, and like there was this one course that required doing like 3 months of algebra and calculus. And my girlfriend at the time was concerned because I was quote unquote unemployed. And she was like, "What are you doing?" And then I would go to dinners with like relatives or close friends, and they would try to talk me out of doing algebra and calculus for months and like getting a job, maybe as like a real estate broker or something. Oh. And I sort of had this urge, and then that urge would sort of continue and like completely contrarian to every input. And then one day I was watching CNBC and Palantir pops up, and I was like, "Fuck, this is exactly what I was building up to," you know. But the way it felt, I don't think it was my compute engine. I think it was like a weird intuition, and the
Yeah.
whole journey took me there, right?
Yeah.
And so today with Immunity Bio, I feel a lot like that. So yesterday I was driving back home and I was thinking, why should this be a micro position? You know, why don't I whatever money I make with my course this year, why don't I just put like 200K into this thing?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so yeah, we're humans, right? It's more intuitive than so if you would ask me right now, I'm very aligned with you in Duolingo. I don't hold a lot of it, just small position, but like I couldn't explain to you, right, why Duolingo is a good pick. Like I can obviously explain it, but like it's more of an intuition. Like I feel that the educational shift will change some towards something like that. Maybe not Duolingo, but something like that, right? So I can feel it more than explain it to you.
I think you probably have like a good framework to understand the value creation process too.
Yeah,
And you can feel that in a full body way. I think you see perhaps members of the community that are early in their journey and they're just maybe you came with your own framework and then but like the point is they come from a sort of they start from zero. Maybe they do completely something completely different, like engineering or whatever, and they're moving forward by intellectualizing the framework, but they never get to that feeling of conviction until it's fully embedded in the subconscious mind, right? So there's a member called Luis, and he wrote something a few weeks ago, and I said, "Now I think now it's in your subconscious," and he was like, "Yeah, it feels that way,"
yeah,
you know. So it's like I think it's like deep in some kind of neural net in the back, and it becomes implicit knowledge, and that's when it gets really fast. Like you can analyze companies a lot faster and track them a lot faster, and it just spin, and then you get these kind of like full body reactions when you see something that works, like a Duolingo or like a Lisa Su, like Thomas, like, I think it was 6 months ago, people were saying Lisa Su was DEI. And I think either you had that sense in the back of your mind of this is a good pick, or like all the short term financial data points were saying sell this thing. Free cash flow down,
yeah,
revenues down,
exactly. Yeah,
not growing fast, Nvidia growing really fast.
yeah.
I think either it was very integrated in your subconscious mind or you sold it $70.
Yeah, I would argue that maybe Lisa Su is the best CEO, which is a non-founder we have in the planet right now. Because who's better than her, right? As a non-founder CEO, she's better than Satya. She's better than
Yeah.
yeah, she is better than Tim Cook. She is the CEO in the whole world, right?
Yeah, and I think that's gonna be really clear to everyone in like 5 years' time. Because I mean this thing today is worth half a trillion, 422 billion. I really think the FPGA thing turns this company into a multi-trillion dollar company.
Yeah, yeah,
Potentially even
probably.
10. She's gonna do
Because
this without being a founder, you know?
yeah, insane, right? Because I am heavy on the founder mode stuff. Because, for example, what Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, Steve Jobs, and like those guys, the founder mode, it's insane, right? Like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, they were doing insane stuff with PayPal, electronic money. Like the founder mode thing is insane. But like as a non-founder, I think she's really the best.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's gonna be the title of the podcast for today. So that
Non-founder mode.
no, I think it's gonna be, Lisa Su is the best non-founder CEO,
Yeah,
which
probably.
which I
Yeah, I don't
think.
know. Maybe we can go deep on that for your viewers because like she took over, it was a whole mess. It's semiconductors, one of the hardest industries in the world. Like Intel was a giant. She
Yeah.
bet the whole company on the Zen architecture. Like
What's really interesting about Lisa is she inherited the chiplet architecture. This was something that had actually been in the works for 2 years before she stepped up. I can't remember the actual name of the previous architect, but it was 2 years in the making, and she came in and said, "Look, this is going to be now the full strategy going forward, and what we're going to do is we're going to work really closely with partners, and that's it." And I think if you read the earnings call transcripts during the point in which people were giving up on AMD, Lisa wasn't saying anything about, chiplets and GPUs and we're going to do this and that and FPGAs. All she was saying is, we're going to work really closely with partners. And analysts were like, screw you, like that doesn't mean anything. But the combination of going full in on chiplets and that organizational tendency to really get close to partners and listen and iterate with them, combined with the flexibility of the chiplet platform and everything, has just translated into outsized value. And it's so simple the way she's done it, but not easy, and so sustained over time. And it's just a beautiful lesson of how one single technological decision, architectural, combined with the appropriate organizational culture, can translate into just so much value. Like this company, when I bought it at $4.2, it was worth what, 3 billion or 4 billion or something like that. And it's just these two things. Just so simple, but so much value and so much joy as an investor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but she's like in founder mode. When you make a bet like this, you have to be in founder mode.
yeah.
But also she has the good traits of CEOs, right? Being cautious, being under promising. Like,
Oh, that is delightful about Lisa. Like
yeah,
she always under promising, always under speaking. Even in the worst of times when she's being questioned, that's such a delightful ability. I should learn from her, right? Because one thing I've been doing for the past 5 years is just over speaking.
Elon Musk mode. Elon
Nah,
Musk
yeah,
mode.
yeah, like yeah, the tweets and stuff. But just so delightful and such a beautiful lesson of like the appropriate organizational properties and how much
Yeah.
value that creates. Anyways, Thomas, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a
Thank you for
wonderful
having
pod.
me. I
Of
would
course.
say I'm very I love contrarian thinkers like you, Peter Thiel, those kind of guys. Having something really interesting to say. You upload the video like twice, maybe 3 times a week. I can't even keep up with the videos. I always have some intellectual thing to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, you're too kind putting me into that bucket with Peter Thiel, but maybe in like 30 years time, we can look back and say, yeah, we're all in that bucket. That's the idea.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
That'd be amazing. So again, Thomas, thank you so much. Guys, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Thomas is an amazing member of the community, but there's so many amazing people inside, and we have such a great time back and forth and learning from each other, and it's just great. So hope to see you guys in there. And again, if you enjoyed this pod, could you please share this with someone else whom you think will enjoy it? These deep dives, updates, and podcasts are for free. So the only way this grows is with your help. So Thomas, thank you so much. And I'm already looking forward to next time. Have a good one.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Yeah. Goodbye.